Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. श्री नाम संकीर्तन की जय। जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय।
Hare Krishna everyone. I apologize for the delay today. Thank you Dev Prabhu and Manishi Mataji for wonderful kirtan.
Thank you Prabhuji for giving us the opportunity.
Right, so let me share my screen. We'll be discussing from chapter 6 verse number 18. Let me know when you all can see my screen.
We can see you.
Excellent. So we'll start with Mangalam. Om Ajnanatimmirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadagam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagan Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadhavaitam Savadhutam Parijan Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagan Lalita Shri Vishakhanutamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. All right, so chapter 6 verse number 18. I'll read out the verse. Yada viniyatam chittam
Yada viniyat. Just a second. The screen went. Yada viniyatam
chittam
Atmani eva vatisthate
Atmanyeva vatisthate
Nispriha sarva kamebhyo
Nishpraha sarva kamebhyo
Yukta iti uchyate tada
Yukta ityuchyate tadha
Yada viniyatam chittam
Yadha viniyatam chittam
Atmani eva vatisthate
Atmanyeva vatisthate
Nispriha sarva kamebhyo
Nishpraha sarva kamebhyo
Yukta ityuchyate tada
Yukta ityuchyate tadha
Yada viniyatam chittam
Yadha viniyatam chittam
Atmani eva vatisthate
Atmanyeva vatisthate
Nispriha sarva kamebhyo
Nishpraha sarva kamebhyo
Yukta iti uchyate tada
Yukta ityuchyate tadha Yadha viniyatam chittam
Yada viniyatam chittam
Atmanyeva vatisthate
Atmanyeva vatisthate
Nishpraha sarva kamebhyo
Nispriha sarva kamebhyo
Yukta ityuchyate tadha
Yada viniyatam chittam
Yada
viniyatam chittam
Atmanya iva vatisthate
Atmanyeva vatisthate
Nispriha sarva kamebhyo
Nishpraha sarva kamebhyo
युक्त इति उच्यते तदा
युक्त इत्युच्यते तदा
यदा विनीयतं चित्तम्
यथा विनियतं चित्तम्
आत्मन्येवावतिष्ठते
आत्मन्येवावतिष्ठते
निःस्पृहा सर्वकामेभ्यो
निष्पृहः सर्वकामेभ्यो
युक्त इत्युच्यते तदा
युक्त इत्युच्यते तदा
यदा विनियतं चित्तम्
यदा विनियतं चित्तम्
आत्मन्येवावतिष्ठते
आत्मन्येवावतिष्ठते
निःस्पृहः सर्वकामेभ्यो
निःस्पृहः सर्वकामेभ्यो
युक्त इति उच्यते तदा
युक्त इत्युच्यते तदा
Okay. Synonyms: yada,
यदा
when,
when
viniyatam,
विनियतं
particularly disciplined,
particularly disciplined
tam,
Chittam,
the mind and its activities,
the mind and its activities
atmani,
Atmani,
in the transcendence,
in the transcendence
eva,
Eva,
certainly, avatishthate,
Avatishtate,
becomes situated,
becomes situated
nispriha,
Nispraha,
devoid of desire,
devoid of desire
serve, for all kinds of,
all kinds of
kamebhya,
Kamebhya,
material sense gratification,
material self-gratification
yuktah,
Yuktaha,
well situated in yoga,
well situated in yoga
iti,
Iti,
thus,
thus
uchyate,
Uchyate,
is said to be,
it is said to be
tada,
Tada,
at that time.
at that time.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation: when the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. Purport: the activities of the yogi are distinguished from those of an ordinary person by his characteristic cessation from all kinds of material desires, of which sex is the chief. A perfect yogi is so well disciplined in the activities of the mind that he can no longer be disturbed by any kind of material desire. This perfectional stage can automatically be attained by persons in Krishna consciousness, as stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Savai manha Krishna padara vindayor vachansi vaikuntha gunanu varnane karau harer mandir marjanadishu shrutim chakara chitti sat kathodhyay mukunda lingalay darshane drashau tadbhritya gatri sparshinga sangamam granam cha tatpad saroj saurabhe Srimad Tulasya Rasanam Tad Arpite Padav Hare Kshetra Padanusvarpane Shiro Rishikesha Padabhivandane Kamam Chadase Natu Kam Kamiya Yathottama Shloka Janashraya Prati. King Amrish, first of all, engaged his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Then, one after another, he engaged his words in describing the transcendental qualities of the Lord, his hands in mopping the temple of the Lord, his ears in hearing of the activities of the Lord, his eyes in seeing the transcendental forms of the Lord, his body in touching the bodies of the devotees, his sense of smell in smelling the scents of the lotus flowers offered to the Lord, his tongue in tasting the tulsi leaf offered at the lotus feet of the Lord, his legs in going to places of pilgrimage and the temple of the Lord, his head in offering obeisances unto the Lord, and his desires in executing the mission of the Lord. All these transcendental activities are quite befitting a pure devotee. This transcendental stage may be inexpressible subjectively by the followers of the impersonalist path, but it becomes very easy and practical for a person in Krishna consciousness, as is apparent in the above description of the engagements of Maharaj Ambarish. Unless the mind is fixed on the lotus feet of the Lord by constant remembrance, such transcendental engagements are not practical. In the devotional service of the Lord, therefore, these prescribed activities are called archana, or engaging all the senses in the service of the Lord. The senses and the mind require engagements. Simple abnegation is not practical. Therefore, for people in general, especially those who are not in the renounced order of life, transcendental engagement of the senses and the mind, as described above, is the perfect process for transcendental achievement, which is called yukta in the Bhagavad Gita. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityananda Namaste Saraswati Deva Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesh Namaste. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Okay, so here I'll read the translation one more time. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he's said to be well established in yoga. Right? So in this chapter, the title is Dhyana Yoga, right? And here Krishna is essentially describing what's the qualification of a person who is, or who could be said, what is the symptom of a person who is well established in yoga, right? So essentially he's saying that by the practice of yoga, when a yogi, if he's able to discipline his mental activities, right, and he's totally situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, such a person is said to be well established in yoga, right? So sometimes, especially in today's world, yoga has become such a popular word. If you go out there, there are so many yoga studios, so-called yoga studios, essentially, which are only limited to the physical exercise, right? So there's a big confusion in terms of what the real meaning of yoga is, right? So yoga, the literal meaning is addition, right? Or combination or summation, essentially. So as we understand that we are all part and parcels of the Supreme Lord, as Krishna says, Mamaivangsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana, manasasthani indriyani prakriti sthani karshati, right? So all of the living entities are part and parcels of the Supreme Lord, right? But because we are forgetful of our true nature, which is that to be the servant of the Supreme Lord, right? And we are his part and parcels. We are struggling very hard. Karshati means to struggle. Prakriti sthani karshati. We are struggling very hard in this material world, right? And the process, any process, right? It could be anything, any path. There are infinite paths to approach the Supreme Lord, right? Any path or any means through which we can go back to that eternal relationship, right? We can realize our true nature, right? So currently we are all separated, not literally separated, because Krishna is always there within our hearts, right? He's always with us. Because if he is not with us, we cannot even sustain ourselves, right? We are so incompetent, or we don't have any power without the Supreme Lord, right? So because Krishna always stays in this body, that's why we are able to do whatever we are able to do, right? So as in the Paramatma feature, Krishna is always with us, right? So it's not that he's separated, but because of the false ego, right? Because we have become forgetful our relationship with him, right? And we do not identify ourselves as part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, as a servant of the Supreme Lord. And we consider ourselves to be the controllers, right? And we want to be happy, independent of the Supreme Lord. So in that perspective, because we have forgotten our true identity. In that sense, we ourselves have separated ourselves from our true identity, which is to be the servant of the Supreme Lord, right? So we are currently separated in that sense, right? And any process that essentially cures that separation, right? Or that transforms false ego into the true ego, where we can remember once again that we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. We are Satchidananda Vigraha. Right? We are part and parcel of Satchitanand, right? So once we realize that through any means, right, whatever means a person adopts to remember, to recall that eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord, that I'm not this body, I'm the Supreme Soul. I'm not this body, but I'm the soul, and I'm part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, who is Krishna, right? So any means through which we realize this absolute truth is called yoga, right? And there are so many yogas that have been defined here, but we can understand that no matter what path we choose, right? A symptom of a person who is well established in yoga is that he disciplines his mind or mental activities in a way that he's totally devoid of the material desires, and he's completely situated in transcendence, right? And that is the symptom. So, some people, like you would see in Shunyavad, right? The big focus is on understanding that I'm not this body, right? So they go through a lot of hardships, a lot of hard work to focus on this part that, I'm not this finger, I'm not this leg, that I've been to a few meditation sessions, years ago, some kind of Buddhist meditation techniques, right? And their big focus usually is that they would make you sit in a particular posture, and then they would ask you to meditate that, I'm not this finger, I'm not this leg, I'm not the stomach, I'm not this hand, right? So on and so forth, right? So essentially, naiti, as we call it, right? I'm not this, I'm not that, right? So the big focus is simply on that, right? Ultimately, the idea there is we are trying to get away from material conception of life. We are trying to get away from the idea that I am this body and I belong to this material world. However, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that trying to force ourselves, trying to push ourselves to give up material desires, simply devoiding the body from the objects of the sense gratification does not work. Vishya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasvarjam rasopiyasya param dashtva nivartate, Krishna says, right? So Vishya vinivartante niraharasya dehina. So if we artificially try to give up sense objects, if we try to basically deprive our senses from the objects of sense gratification, that does not work. Param drishtva nivartate, Krishna says. So what's the true way to do that? By basically arranging a higher taste for our senses, right? So instead of devoiding our senses from the material sense objects, the better way to do it is to provide our senses something that has a higher taste, right? So that they can experience a higher taste, basically, right? So till the time we do that, you may be able to devoid or deprive your senses temporarily from the material sense objects, but the taste still stays, right? Rasvarjam rasopiyasya, right? So although we are, varjam means to artificially, essentially deprive, right? So we can deprive them, rasvarjam rasopi asya, but the taste still stays, right? Although I may be depriving my tongue from the taste of from rasgulla for some time, but because my mind already understands what a rasgulla is, right, and it has already tasted that in the past, you can deprive yourself for some time, but eventually that desire to go back to rasgulla will stay till the time it tastes something better than a rasgulla, right? I'm not sure what dessert is better than rasgulla. That's my favorite one. So, but here Prabhupada is indicating exactly that, right? So that is the big benefit that we have in the case of Bhakti Yoga. Just like, Prabhupada is giving the example of Ambrish Maharaj from Srimad Bhagavatam, that how Ambrish Maharaj very intelligently, right, through the process of Varchana, he was able to engage each and every sense in the service of the Supreme Lord, right? And of course, in the beginning, he may not have experienced that higher taste. But gradually, when we practice, because that is actually the higher taste, we will be able to realize, right? As they say, to develop a palate, right? So, just like, people who drink a lot of wine initially, they would tell you, okay, yeah, the wine may be bitter in the beginning, but once you taste it a few times, you will develop a palate for it, right? So similarly, I mean, our bodies and mind, they are all conditioned towards material flavors, towards materialistic life, towards materialistic sense objects. But when we practice under the direction of the spiritual master, who's coming in a bona fide parampara, that message itself and the process that a spiritual master provides, if we can practice that sincerely, the practice essentially comprises of this, right? If we look at our schedule, right, what do we do, right? We get up early in the morning, we try to chant the names of the Supreme Lord, right? So we are trying to engage our tongue in chanting the name of the Lord, and we are trying to engage our ears in hearing those names. Similarly, when we perform Aarati, right, we have such a beautiful process where we have an incense, right? So incense gives out beautiful, nice fragrance, which our nose can relish, right? And then you have beautiful lamp, which our eyes can relish. You have beautiful flower offerings that again, our eyes and our nose can relish, right? So on and so forth. So there is a very beautiful process that has been defined. And then we listen to Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, all of these discourses, which can engage our tongue as well as our mind into the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Lord, right? And, similarly, when we perform Sankirtan with nice music, right? So that engages our mind, our ears, basically all of the senses. Similarly, when we go to any pilgrimage, we can utilize our legs, right? In the right way to relish the higher taste, right? So gradually, when we perform all of the entire process, right? The package that has been given to us by our acharyas, which we call Krishna consciousness, right? In every sense, right? No matter who you think, Prabhupada, he was able to engage everyone's talent in Krishna consciousness, right? If someone was a very good painter and he enjoyed painting, Prabhupada told him, why don't you read the scriptures? Because in our scriptures, we have got such beautiful description of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, right? So why don't you paint them? And today we see wherever there is mention of Krishna and Srimati Radharani, right? I have mostly seen paintings painted by ISKCON devotees all over the world, no matter, you look at a teleserial or whatever it is, right? So Prabhupada was able to engage them so nicely, even though they may not have seen anything else, but just by going through the description defined in the Vedas, they were able to engage their mind and their entire skill of painting in the service of the Supreme Lord. And we could see, actually, Prabhupada said that this is transcendental, right? Govindam Adi Purusham that we hear in our temples by Yamuna Mataji, Prabhupada actually said that this is a transcendental voice coming from Golok Vrindavan Dham, right? So Prabhupada was an expert at employing everyone's talent in the service of the Supreme Lord, right? Someone who was very good at singing, Prabhupada told them to sing, right? Someone who was very good at management, Prabhupada told them, why don't you manage the temple, Similarly, someone, if he is very good at connecting with people, right? With leadership, some people have a political mind, right? So you need everything, right? To run an organization, you need everything. But this organization's ultimate objective is to connect people to the Supreme Lord, right? So this way, we see that in ISKCON, by the mercy of Prabhupada, our acharyas and the Guru Sampradaya, we have everything, no matter what kind of a talent you have, we have an opportunity for us to engage ourselves in this process, right? Without doing anything, right? If you look at some other yogic systems, right? Just like I gave you one example of, how, some kind of a Buddha meditation works. Similarly, there are so many others, right? In Nirvisheshwadas, impersonalism, there is some other kind of a meditation technique where you have to sit down in a certain way, take up a certain posture. So, and most of these processes do not work particularly in Grihasthashram. They are simply impractical, right? You do not have that kind of an atmosphere. You do not have, that kind of a facility, that kind of an environment to be able to practice those techniques, right? So especially in Kali Yuga, they are anyways useless. And that's what that's what Prabhupada is saying here, that Krishna consciousness or Bhakti Yoga is the most practical way for us to approach or to reach this particular state that Krishna is describing for a person who is perfectly established in yoga, right? So by engaging our senses in the service of the Supreme Lord through various means and processes, we can gradually discipline our mental activities in such a way that all of the material desires are gradually totally cleansed from our heart. And we are always thinking about the transcendental. We are situated in perfect transcendence, right? And we see how, the 9 processes of bhakti, it starts with Shraddha, right? Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajan Kriya, and then Anartha Nivritti. And gradually, this Anartha Nivritti is essentially the cleansing process, right? So this is nothing but we should understand, how we are progressing in bhakti, or when the Anartha Nivritti process is taking place. Essentially what's happening is our desire towards exploiting material sense objects will go down gradually, right? Or material desires will gradually diminish and transcendental desires will expand, right? So we would find that, we find more taste in hearing about the Lord. We do not really enjoy in associating with people who talk materialistic stuff, right? So it will happen gradually. And that's how we can understand that we are making progress in the spiritual path, in the bhakti process. Now, sometimes it happens that, I have experienced it myself. We try to pull ourselves down, right? We think, oh my God, I'm getting potentially too much distance from material sense gratification, right? Which may put me, outside of the society, so to say, right? So gradually what happens is that back and forth keeps on happening. But if someone is very sincerely following the path of Krishna consciousness, that is the end result. Ultimately, what will happen is we will totally lose our taste in the material activities, and we will develop, and as we are doing that, we will develop the taste toward transcendental activities or serving the Supreme Lord, right? Just like, as you gradually grow from darkness towards light, darkness automatically goes away, right? They are basically 2 sides of the same coin. As you move towards Krishna, your taste towards materialistic life will gradually start to diminish automatically. We don't really have to do anything, right? It's a natural process, right? So this is the best process and the most practical, what Prabhupada is describing here. There are many other yogic practices which try to do that, but none of them are practical, particularly in the age of Kali Yuga, right? And, then, one question arises, why do these paths even exist, right? If Bhakti Yoga is the best and it's most practical, and Krishna himself is saying that this is the ideal way to do it, as Prabhupada is mentioning here, right? Basically, Yukta Marg. So then what was the use of impersonalism, for example? Now, the answer to that question is that for anyone to practice Bhakti Yoga, there is a minimal requirement. And that minimal requirement is the person should not be envious of the Supreme Lord. If a person is envious of the Supreme Lord, he cannot accept the path of Krishna consciousness, right? Gradually, he will have to be cleansed by coming in association of the devotees, or, the devotees have enough power, just like Prabhupada, right? He was so potent that because of his purity, even a person who was envious was able to give up his envy and develop little bit of Shraddha to pursue the path of Krishna consciousness. But not everyone is like that, right? Because we've all got previous karmic reactions, we've got prarabdhas. So not everyone is conducive towards the path of Krishna consciousness because we are just too envious. It's very, very difficult for us to accept that there is a Supreme Lord, that I cannot be that Supreme Lord, right? That very idea that the absolute reality, I am not the Supreme, I am just the servant. I am simply serving the Supreme Lord, right? That very idea could be very, very distasteful for someone due to the previous prarabdhas. And therefore, for such people, it is, we have the path of impersonalism where it starts with Suham, right? So the idea is, I am the same as him. Now that's much more palatable to that person, right? Because he thinks, oh, so the absolute reality is actually, I am the absolute reality. I am the same as the absolute reality, right? The true notion is, I am the same as him qualitatively, right? So both us and the Supreme Lord are the same in the sense that we are all Brahman, right? Na jayate mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuya ajo nityo shashvato yam purano na hanyate hanyamani sharire. This is the definition of Brahman. So if we put ourselves or the Supreme Lord, both us and the Supreme Lord meet this criteria as defined in this verse, right? Na jayate, so never takes birth. Na mriyate, never dies. Va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuya. It's not like we got created at some point or we will be annihilated at the other point. We will always exist. We have always existed, right? Na hanyate hanyamani sharire. Although this body would die, but who we actually are will never die, right? So this is the definition of Brahman. And this definition applies to both us as well as the Supreme Lord. So in that sense, we are the same as the Supreme Lord. But quantitatively, there is a huge difference, right? And that difference, the essential difference is Krishna is the absolute controller, right? And we have very, very minute control, and that too has been given to us by the Supreme Lord, right? But here's the key aspect to understand. What we are really looking for is not control. It is happiness, right? Remember, the definition of the Supreme Lord, Krishna, is Satchidananda Vigraha, right? So if we look around us and if we start to question ourselves, we can realize that what we really want is happiness. We do not really want the control, but because of false ego, we falsely and foolishly think that the more we control, the more we can be happy, right? So we have somehow associated control and we are confusing it with happiness. But control is something that is possessed only by the Supreme Lord in the perfect sense, right? Krishna is the supreme controller, and whatever control we may have, we may be experiencing in this material world, it's because we wanted some amount of control, because we think that we are the controllers. So Krishna has given it to us by the facility of Mahamaya, right? And that's what we see in this material creation. In fact, that's the whole reason why this material creation exists, right? Because that control cannot be given to us in the spiritual world, because that's the absolute reality. If someone who is still in his false ego and he's given control, he would create havoc in the spiritual society, right? Where everyone hates to be the controller. Only Krishna is the supreme controller, and that too because he has to facilitate the mutual relishment or the give and take, right? The leelas, the pastimes between Krishna and the devotees. There has to be a certain setup that has to be managed, right? So Krishna facilitates that through Yogamaya there, right? But we understand control to be proportional to happiness, and that's why Krishna created this material creation. And through the faculty of Mahamaya, Krishna has given us some minute control. And our entire endeavor is towards enhancing that control, right? If you look around us, everyone is after money, for example, right? Now, what does money give you, right? Why do we want to be billionaires? Because the more money we have, the more control we would have, right? We can control more and more people. More and more people can come and serve me, right? Instead of me serving the Supreme Lord, right? So that's what we want. And that is the classic symptom of false ego, right? So for some people, it could be very difficult to accept Krishna as the Supreme Lord, right? And to get beyond this understanding that I'm not the controller, right? So for such people, we have Shunyavad or Nirvisheshwad, right? These different yogic paths have been prescribed, right? So that they have some way to eventually come to the path of Krishna consciousness. Remember, there is no way to attain perfection without coming to Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is the means and the destination, both, right? Eventually, after we go back to Krishna, to Golok Vrindavan Dham, we would still be serving the Supreme Lord. We will be still doing Sankirtan. We will still be chanting his names. We'll be engaging in his service there too, right? So that's the ultimate destination. So Bhakti Yoga is both the means and the destination, right? And as Krishna says, right, no matter what we do, everyone has to understand that I am the part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. I am the servant of the Supreme Lord. And only by surrendering unto the Supreme Lord can one attain ultimate absolute position, right? Mam maya duratya mam evi prapadyante maya mitam tarandite. Krishna says, right? So only by surrendering unto me can a person cross beyond this maya or my material energy, right? So there is no other way, right? So therefore we have to realize and understand that Krishna consciousness is the ultimate destination, right? No matter where a person starts, eventually he has to come to that stage. But not everyone has the qualification to enter into Krishna consciousness directly. Therefore, we have other ways and means and paths. But eventually, that person, after reaching a certain stage, has to come to Krishna consciousness, right? So, Brahma Bhut Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhakti labdhe param, Krishna says, right? After a person understands that I am Brahma, right? I am eternal. I am not this material body, right? Brahma Bhut Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati. He is free of all of the worries and all of the desires. Sama sarveshu bhuteshu, right? And he understands that everyone is Brahma as well. And then mad bhakti labdhe param, he says. Eventually he attains to my devotional service. He does not say that he attains perfection, right? He says he attains to my devotional service. And only by attaining to his devotional service, eventually that person can reach the absolute, right? So this is very important for us to understand. Mam upete punarjanam dukhalem shashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana sam siddhim paramam gata. So in the case of people who are pursuing Krishna, after approaching Krishna, after reaching Krishna, mam upete punarjanam, right? After coming to me, they do not have to take birth again in this material world, which is full of misery and it is temporary. Mam upete punarjanam dukhalem shashvatam napnuvanti mahatmana. So that those great souls who have already reached me, they do not have to come back to this material world, which is full of misery and distress, right? And it is temporary. Sam siddhim paramam gata, Krishna says, because they have achieved the ultimate destination. Sam siddhim, they have achieved all the perfections. Paramam gata. Paramam means, beyond which there is nothing else. That's the topmost. Gata means destination, right? So because they have now finally reached me, that is the absolute platform. There is nothing beyond that, right? Whereas in the case of people who just understand this aspect that I'm not this body, I'm the soul, Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhakti labdhe param. Krishna is very, very clear. He categorically says that just to know that I'm not this body, I'm soul, it's not sufficient. You will eventually have to come towards understanding the idea that I am the supreme, that Krishna is the supreme, and I am his part and parcel. And when I practice devotional service, eventually I can understand that this absolute truth, that Krishna is the supreme. And by understanding that, I can go back to Krishna. And once I go back to Krishna, I have achieved the ultimate destination from where I do not have to return, right? So that is the idea. So we are very, very fortunate that by the mercy of Prabhupada and the devotees, we have understood the true purport of yoga. And we have also understood what's the best, the most convenient and perfect yoga, which is bhakti yoga, right? And we have got such wonderful facility to be able to practice bhakti yoga in the association of the devotees, right? It's so wonderfully performed. You don't have to stand on one leg for millions of years, right? Like other people used to do. That's why, you often see most of the demons, right? They would go through such austerities just to attain, one small siddhi or something else, right? They do not come to bhakti yoga. Why? Because they are envious of the Supreme Lord. They are envious of Vishnu. In most of the instances, we would see that. So they may be able to make some of the demigods happy. Maybe they are able to make Lord Shiva happy or Lord Brahma happy. But they cannot achieve the ultimate destination by performing anything else. Only by performing devotional service, ultimately a person achieves the ultimate destination, right? So we're indeed extremely fortunate that we have taken birth in this day and age, just about 500 years after Sri Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came into this material world, right? And he freely distributed Krishna consciousness to everyone through Harinam, right? And we are so fortunate that in that lineage, we have got Srila Prabhupada that then took it not just from India, he took it all over the world and he spread this nectar all over the world so that now it is freely available to us, right? No matter whether you are sitting in Vrindavan or you are sitting in Connecticut or you are sitting in Russia or you are sitting in Africa, wherever you are, Prabhupada has made such a wonderful arrangement that we can follow Bhakti Yoga, the perfect yoga, very, very conveniently and very, very easily in the association of the devotees, right? So we should not let go of this opportunity. This is very, very practical. This could be done by anyone, even in Grihastha Ashram, even with a lot of family responsibility. You don't have to stand on one leg for millions of years. You simply have to get up a little bit early in the morning, chant a few rounds. That too, today we have wonderful facility of Zoom and phone calls and so many different things. Even if there is coronavirus, there is not much to worry. You can always take mercy from devotees like, we have such a wonderful congregation in the morning from Raga Sindhu Prabhuji, so many of them. We are very, very fortunate to have surrounded by such potent devotees all over us and all around us. And, we have Pyari Prabhuji, Jiva Mataji serving so nicely here. So this is essentially, Prabhupada's mercy. We should take it very, very seriously. Sometimes some things that we achieve very easily, we take that for granted, but at some point we realize the importance of them, right? They are not easily obtained, right? So we should consider ourselves very, very fortunate that we are able to engage ourselves in bhakti yoga, right? Because this is not for everyone, right? Not everyone is fortunate enough to be able to adopt bhakti yoga, right? Most of the souls, they are just so envious of the Supreme Lord, they cannot even relish or appreciate what to talk about practicing Krishna consciousness. They would detest or hate Krishna consciousness altogether, right? So we are very fortunate that somehow or the other, by the mercy of the devotees, we have understood to a certain extent that this is the perfect path, and we have adopted this path. So now that we have adopted this path, we just have to stick to it, right? And there could be fall downs, there could be mistakes, but whatever it is, the process is such that as long as we stick with it, success is guaranteed, right? As long as we are sincerely trying to follow the instructions of the spiritual master, success is guaranteed, no matter how many failures we have, right? So with that spirit, with that resolute, firm determination that ultimately, Krishna will always protect, and the message is perfect. It has been given to us as it is by our Guru Sampradaya, by Srila Prabhupada. And when it has worked for so many people, there should be no doubt that it will not work for us, right? It will absolutely work for us as long as we are sincere and we try to stick to it. Somehow or the other, we just have to keep association of the devotees. That is the bottom line, right? Because sometimes we can get confused, right? Sometimes we can get reluctant. Sometimes we can get discouraged. Sometimes we may not do what we are, we are told to do. But as long as we have devotees around us, they can always remind us, right? Just by their potency, they don't even have to speak with us. If we walk into a temple and we see devotees all around us chanting, you would automatically take up your beads and start to chant, right? Such is the effect and the impact of the devotees, right? So as long as we have association of the devotees, that is the key, the most important principle. So no matter what happens in our lives, we should stick to this one idea that somehow or the other, we have to keep associating with the devotees, right? And as long as we do that, eventually the process itself will take care. We don't really have to worry about anything, right? So we are all very, very fortunate, right? And we should make the best use of this opportunity that has been given to us by none other than Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord himself, right? He is Krishna himself. He is none other than Krishna, right? He is a very, very potent. We are so fortunate that Krishna himself came as Mahaprabhu in this day and age, and he freely distributed this to us. Right? So we are not sure, when, how, the next birth, if we have a next birth, how will we, what will we be, right? We don't know. There are so many uncertainties, right? So now that somehow or the other we have got this opportunity, we should not let it go, right? And what do we mean by not letting it go and sticking to the process? This one principle, staying in association of the devotees, that is the bottom line. As long as we do that, they will lift us up, right? So this very idea that we have to stick with the process, what does it really mean, right? It simply means this: we have to keep association of the devotees. As long as we remember that, and somehow we can convince ourselves to never lose in touch of the devotees, to always keep association of the devotees, it means we are sticking with the process, and the process will take care, right? So we should not be forgetful of it. So with that, I'll stop and see if there are any questions or comments.
Very nice of you, Namdevi Prabhu. Could have kept on listening to you more.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
This is so nice that every day we have the association of the scriptures, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's like before, you know, we could get away from it when it was only once in a Sunday or something, you know. We got busy with different things. Now we have like very regularly every single day, you know,
Right.
which makes a big difference, you know, when you're connected every day.
Absolutely. No doubt about it, Mataji. So actually pandemic turned out to be a blessing in disguise in this sense at least.
Oh,
That
yes.
we found this medium through which we can associate every day.
Yeah, silver lining in the cloud.
Yes. And as I was saying, right, so this is the key. Association is the foundation of Krishna consciousness actually, right? So Shraddha and then Sadhu Sangha. Right? So Sadhu Sangha comes right at the beginning, right? So as long as we keep Sadhu Sangha, the association, everything else will fall in place, right? Because the devotees are there to correct us.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we remember this one thing and we keep remembering this till the end of our lives, we will be eventually taken care of, right? So we should do everything that pleases the devotees. We may have hundreds of flaws. That's my personal realization. I mean, I'm full of flaws, but somehow or the other, you know, by mercy of Prabhupada, he always inspires me to keep association of the devotees, right? So if we can please the devotees somehow or the other, especially devotees who are advanced, you know, who we know, and I mean, everyone is trying to pursue Krishna consciousness, right? But as we have learned, right, there are different stages, right? Madhyam adhikaris, uttam adhikaris, and then there are beginners, right? So if we can keep particularly an association of Madhyam adhikaris and uttam adhikaris, we should absolutely have in some way and form some connection with them, try to please them as much as we can, and particularly the spiritual master. He is the Uttamadhikari, right? And as long as we can please our spiritual master by following instructions, everything else will fall in line.
Right. But association of the scripture is also association of Srila Prabhupada, you know.
That's
when we are listening every day, we are reading every day, we keep in connection with Srila Prabhupada, you know.
Certainly.
I mean, I could feel that too. I mean, 10 days I was away from the devotees, you know, and I could feel the difference, you know.
That's very true, Mataji. Right. So we can associate with Srila Prabhupada through books, through lectures. I mean,
right.
Has arranged everything so nicely. You know, when Prabhupada came, we had means and ways to capture his voice. Right. I mean, if he probably came 100 years ago, we didn't have that opportunity. But through his books and we have his videos, we have his audio, right? So through all of that, we can associate with him.
Yeah, even like simple prasadam seems much more tastier than any fancy food on vacation somewhere.
That's so true. Certainly. Yeah, but I mean, along with reading Prabhupada books, which is absolutely essential, I personally found that having, you know, a devotee in which you can confide, right? You can share freely. It's very important actually. Because sometimes we may not even have spiritual strength to read Prabhupada books, right? We just become so reluctant and busy with the material lives, you know. So although Prabhupada books are right there, we may not be enthusiastic enough to pick it up and read it, right? But when we have a devotee who we can physically associate with, right? And we have to make a conscious effort to befriend particularly pure devotees of the Lord. Right? Because as long as we do that, even if we have one of them, you know, different enough for us to again, you know, fill us with that spiritual energy so that we can associate with Prabhupada again. So that is very important. Thank you for the discussion, Mataji. That was nice.
Yeah. But there's always Krishna, you know. If there's nobody else, you can cry to Krishna.
Yep.
My grandmother used to say, if you have something, you know, something bad to say, you know, talk. If you have something good to say, she used to share with everybody, you know. But if you have something bad to say, share with the Lord, she used to say.
That's a good point, Mataji. Yeah. I mean, he knows everything, right?
Right.
And I mean, it's also a good way for us to establish a relationship with him, right?
I know, of course, very confidential and wonderful devotees are definitely needed. Yes.
Right.
But sometimes we may not even get that, you know.
Yeah. You're right. Absolutely. Great. Anything else, anyone? Any other points or questions? All right. So if not, 7:57, we can pay obeisance to all the assembled Vaishnavas. Vancha
Kalpatarabhyascha kripa sindhuveva
कृपाप्राणेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो
namo nam
कोटि
Pati
वैष्णव
Vaishnavrinda ki jai.
वैष्णव प्रभुपाद की
Jai.
श्रीमद् भगवद गीता की जय अभिराम प्रभु की जय
Prabhu ki jai.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you so much for attending and listening. Hare Krishna.